and welcome to Library Time. My name is Catherine and this is Gabriel.
Hello. Today we are joined by a very special guest. He has written 3 fantastic children's books and has won the Smarties Book Prize as well as Blue Peter Book of the Year.
It's the brilliantly creative SF Saeed. Welcome to the library.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me to your brilliant library. What would you guys like to talk about?
The first question we would like to ask you is, how did you get into writing stories?
I think every writer is really just a reader who takes one more step and writes a story they want to read themselves. So I'm just somebody who has always loved stories. As long as I can remember, I've always loved stories. And at a certain point, I started to think I would like to try and do something like that myself. So if you enjoy stories, whether in books or movies or TV or anywhere, you can be a writer too. Absolutely anyone can do it. All you have to do is tell yourself a story you would really like to read yourself, and then do everything you can to make it as good as you would want a story to be as a reader.
Both the Phoenix and Varjak Paw books have quite unusual characters and storylines. Where do you get your inspiration from?
I think you can get inspirations from many different places. So with Varjak Paw, I was very inspired by my own cat and his own adventures. If you have a pet, I'm sure you will get many great ideas for stories from just looking at your pet and their interactions with the world. With Phoenix, I was very inspired by the stars themselves. I grew up in the middle of London where there is so much pollution and light pollution at night. We never really see the proper night sky as you would see it in one of those amazing pictures taken by the Hubble Space Telescope, something like that. But I love that kind of thing. And when I was 12 years old, I remember going camping in the desert in Jordan with my dad, where he was living at the time. And the night sky in the desert is so dark and clear, you really can see millions and millions and millions of stars. It was unbelievable. Couldn't sleep all night just looking at the stars thinking, the universe is amazing. And that kind of feeling is what I wanted to get into Phoenix. So inspiration can come from anywhere. Whatever you find inspiring, you should put into your writing, whatever that might be.
The character of the gentleman in Varjak Paw is very creepy. Is he inspired by a real person?
I don't think the gentleman is inspired by any particular person that I know, no. But I think all the characters in all my books probably started out at some point having something to do with something that I've seen or felt at some point in my life. But then as you work on a story, it kind of takes on its own logic in a way. And you have to make it true to itself, whatever that might be. So even if a character started out being inspired by something in real life, so for example, the character of Julius is inspired by somebody in my life, that person has read the book and has no idea that Julius had anything to do with them, and loves the book and thinks Julius is horrible. Julius became Julius and no longer has anything to do with the actual person. So I think stories are interesting and strange in that way, that as you work on a story, it becomes something else. You take your experience as a starting point, but then it becomes a story. So the gentleman is just the gentleman, I think. He just exists as himself.
In Varjak Paw, Varjak visits the magical land of Mesopotamia. What led you to choose this part of the world?
Oh, what a great question. Mesopotamia, I'm fascinated by. It's a real place. It's the ancient name of the country that we now call Iraq, which is where a lot of my family came from originally. Mesopotamia is also where a lot of things began. So the oldest writing in the world that we know about, the Mesopotamian myths and legends are the very, very oldest stories that we know, older than Greek myths or Egyptian or Roman or anything like that. So I was amazed when I discovered this, and the history of Mesopotamia is absolutely fascinating. If you have enjoyed my attempt to depict it in Varjak Paw, look at the real stuff. It is absolutely astonishing. I think you'll find it incredible. So Mesopotamia itself is something I'm really, really interested in. And I've tried to create a kind of a cat's point of view on Mesopotamia by having Varjak go back to the origins, because to me Mesopotamia represents the origins of many, many things.
What is your process for writing a book?
My process for writing a book I could probably spend all day talking about, but the first step is to just be the reader and ask myself as a reader, if I could have any story, what would it be? And I have to answer that 100% honestly. Whatever it is, whatever you most want to read, that is what you should write. That's how you will get your best ideas. That's stage 1, getting an idea. Stage 2, write a first draft. On a first draft, I think you should just have fun, tell yourself a story you want to read. Don't be critical. Don't think, is this any good? Will anyone else like it? Don't worry. Just try and enjoy yourself. Then, get distance. Step away. Do something else. Forget that you even wrote the thing. Then come back and read it again, but when you do, pretend you didn't write it. Pretend somebody else wrote it. And actually, pretend it's a book you just bought with your own money. That will help you to see how it could be better. Because I think when you buy a book, you want it to be brilliant, don't you? And if the thing you are reading is not as brilliant as you would want a book to be, then you have to find ways to make it better. So the next step in the process, do another draft. Try and find any way you can to make it better, more exciting, more whatever you want it to be. If it's meant to be a funny book, make it funnier. If it's meant to be a scary book, make it scarier. Whatever you want, more. And then just keep doing that again and again. Go from being the writer to being the reader, back and forth. And do that for as long as you can. With Varjak Paw, I did that 17 times, so that's why it was 17 drafts. But it was worth it in the end. It was a very, very long, difficult process. I always find it difficult. Not every writer finds it as hard as I do. You'll probably find it easier. But there is no writer that can write a perfect story in one draft. It just doesn't exist. So don't worry about it. Just have fun on your first draft, and then back away, be critical, do everything you can to make it better, and then repeat until you cannot possibly improve it anymore. And that's basically my writing process.
And do you ever feel frustrated when you're writing?
Oh yeah, I feel frustrated often, and sometimes I feel bored. Sometimes I feel like giving up, and I feel defeated sometimes. I'm like, oh, this is terrible. But what I have found is that perseverance is incredibly powerful. If you keep trying your best at something, you keep trying to get help from other people who can help you, you can get better and you can make your writing better. And if you keep at it, you will, in the end, produce something you can really be proud of. And I think that is possible. It might take a long time, but it is possible. So although I complain a lot to anyone who will listen about how difficult I find writing and how long it takes, when I look at my books now, I do not see anything I want to change. They are the books I want to read myself, and that is a very satisfying thing to feel about your work, that there is nothing you would change about it. And so I feel even if I only ever write a few books, if they really are the very best I can possibly do, that's enough. You know, that will get me through stages of feeling dissatisfied or depressed or demoralized, which I often do when writing, and I think that's normal. All writers go through ups and downs. The important thing is keep going, and that I think is true of anything, whether it's writing or some like a sport or a musical instrument. Yeah, I'm sure you guys know this from all your experiences in life already. Nothing is just great all the time, you know. If you want to get good at something, sometimes it's going to be tough, but hang in there, you will improve.
What do you think is the key to writing a good story?
I think the key to writing a good story is writing a story you really want to read yourself. It is as simple as that. And why is Harry Potter so good? It's so good because it is what J.K. Rowling was living when she was writing it. She loves that story, you could tell. She loves all the characters in the story. It's coming from somewhere deep inside her. This is what she would most want to read. So if you want your story to be amazing, make it the thing that amazes you.
What advice would you give to a young person who is thinking about becoming a writer?
The first piece of advice I would give is read as widely as you can. You know, every writer I know is a reader. We all read a lot, and we're all different, but I think most writers read quite broadly. There are very few writers who only read one kind of thing. So I don't have a favourite genre of book, for example. I like all different genres. I like non-fiction, I like poetry, I like picture books, I like comic books, I like mysteries, adventures, school stories, history. I like all of it. All I want is that the writer should do the best they can possibly do, whatever they're doing, and if they've done that, I'm happy, and if they haven't, I'm kind of annoyed. So, but I always feel I learn something from everything I read, and the more widely I read, the more I learn. So the first piece of advice to anyone interested in writing, read as much as you can. I think that's good advice for anyone who wants to do anything, though. Like, reading is the best thing you can possibly do in almost every way conceivable. So read a lot, and then the other bit of advice is what we have been talking about with the writing process. Write the stories you want to read and give it everything you've got to make it as good as you can. And I think that's really about it. Don't worry about will it be popular and successful. And no, make it something you love, and then other people will love it too.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We have really enjoyed having you with us in the library.
Well, thank you both. It's been great talking to you. Good luck with your writing and your reading and everything you want to do.
That's all we have time for this episode of Library Time.
Make sure you don't miss any future episode by clicking the subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Bye.